Hey, what's up, guys? Node Investor here. Coming to you live from beautiful, sunny, warm in December, Arizona. I've got a special guest here today. So, Real Crypto is in the house. He's a local here, and he's got his own YouTube channel. If you're not familiar, go ahead and say hi.
Hey, what's up, guys? How you doing?
And go ahead.
I'll just introduce myself if you don't know about me. My channel is Real-Crypto. Actually, known Node for like, what, 5 years now?
Yep, we've been trading other stuff and stocks and all kinds of fun stuff and options, but it's been all crypto here for quite some time now. And
that's right. All crypto.
I'm too distracted by crypto to do anything else. It's like I don't trade stocks or anything right now. So
and we don't sleep.
And yeah, definitely don't sleep right now. That's cool.
We don't need that.
I was up till probably 2:30 a.m. my time with my group, many of who are on the call right now. And yeah, then up early this morning and good times.
I know,
good times. So all right, so I want to talk a couple of things here, and we'll go ahead and look at the charts. But first things first, 13K. The rocket ship continues. You can see Bitcoin just running hard. We had a very brief pause, and man, this bad boy is going parabolic here. And so what I was watching yesterday was this little consolidation Bitcoin was putting in for a couple of days, and that 11.8 area was really my breakout point. And I told a few people yesterday, I said, watch out for this 11, tighten up the stops. We had a couple alt positions. And sure enough, once Bitcoin popped through and hit that 11K, it was a translation into the alts. You can see the smashing that happened there. You can see ARK was looking good, got smashed. You can see Civic was looking like he wanted to break out, got smashed, and on and on. We go down the list. Even Ethereum, Litecoin. Look at that crazy volume. And this is more than just crypto kitties plugging the pipes here, ladies and gentlemen. This is just selling into Bitcoin.
Yeah, I was actually hoping that Ethereum trend line on the top there would actually break to the upside, hoping that weakness would subside, but it did not. It just broke. It just completely failed right there at that.
Hit that support level and just massive dump. Now it's oversold, so I would think this might, looking out for that opportunity of the potential bounce, even on a bounce play versus Bitcoin. I mean, you would get, look at the RSI here. It's almost there. Not quite on the daily, but it's very close versus Bitcoin. So even a bounce play is going to give you a 20%er versus Bitcoin.
Wow. How much time's left on this bar here? Oh, you don't have your time.
This is the daily.
Oh, that's the daily?
Yeah, so if you go to the 4 hour.
I'm curious what that volume, if that volume's done or if you're still.
9 RSI. It's oversold. It's like, maybe I should just sell my Bitcoin and buy Ethereum here and wait for the bounce.
-50 RSI.
It's pretty wild. And so we're seeing some crazy action. Let's see Litecoin here real quick.
Yeah, I was also waiting for Litecoin to break out after that 103 level, but it did not either.
Trying to bounce here.
Yeah,
trying to bounce here again. Very oversold conditions versus Bitcoin, but failing. And look at, I was waiting for, you were probably looking at the same thing I was looking at.
I was looking right
this initial break and then the true confirmation above 104, 105.
Yep.
And on the USD chart, that'd be a nice little continuation breakout on Litecoin. That would take us probably to like that 120.
I was looking at that volume declination right there too, off of that one bar right there for it to break up, but it broke down instead. So you just have to respect the charts and stay out, step aside. You can't let your opinions get you into something just because you think it's cheap. You have to obey the charts.
Yep, it's all the Bitcoin show right now.
Yep,
everybody's dumping everything, going not everything, but pretty much. Right, there's a handful of good holdouts, and we'll take a look at some of those here. But I was looking at a lot of charts yesterday. I was thinking there were some good altcoin setups, and that Bitcoin breakout just destroyed all those setups.
Yeah.
And it's just all Bitcoin. It's kind of going parabolic here. And
well, it is parabolic. Go back to the daily chart. Go back to the daily chart in Bitcoin.
So this is on Bitfinex. Hasn't quite hit that 13 mark on the others. We're certainly now. Let me share my FUD chart.
That's what I want to see. Yeah, I like your FUD chart. That was a good chart.
I posted a newsletter out today earlier, guys. If you didn't see it on Twitter, there's a link out there, and I posted it, and it was my newsletter, the FUD edition. And I get it. Some of you guys are gonna yell at me, and I'm spreading FUD on fear, but this is the facts, this is the reality. So I just kind of pointed out the fact that we've been doing this J curve here, and it's continuing to follow suits. And I've been talking about this for the last couple months, right? Earlier in the year, this was a very clean parallel channel that Bitcoin was respecting. But then September, October, things really started to shift. And the lows got tighter, and the pullbacks weren't as deep. And this upper parallel trend that everybody thought was going to be the wall, it just broke right through it.
Yeah.
And now we're doing this kind of parabolic push, right? And this blue line at the top, I mean, this is just my rendering from yesterday. This could be, it could be anywhere in here, right? It could go 15, it could go 17, 18. I mean, who knows?
could go all the way up to 20.
When
really
it goes
ends.
parabolic, there's just no way to call the top. You just watch the action and take it as it goes. Because we saw IOTA yesterday.
Oh yeah.
I mean, nobody would have guessed it. It just blew right through $2, $3, $4, $5 like that.
Yeah, blew right up to $5 without a problem. And if you look at the Bitcoin volume going parabolic, the volume is not out of range. You're not even in the volume isn't parabolic yet. The volume is still normal accumulation.
It's not the climactic topping volume
that
you normally see at the top.
No, when we saw that big bar up there towards 11.5, zoom in on that.
Yeah, that looked like it.
Yeah, that really looked. I put out some crazy video out there that I got a lot of flack for, which is fine. But you know, in the moment, you have to respect a doji with the volume, and then when it doesn't confirm, then you can change your opinion. But your opinion has to change with the market. You have to let the charts tell you what to do.
Sure. Yeah, when I saw that doji, I was on high alert, and it did pull back for a little bit, and we sold out on the 4-hour chart.
About 12 hours it pulled back,
and it was a 30%er.
Well, it was about 20. Well, I guess depending on
from the peak,
about 20%.
But I mean, right? Yeah, 20%.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is Bitcoin's bases, like you said, they've been getting shorter in amplitude and shorter in duration too. We went from like 40%, 40%, 30%, 20%, and then this base at 11,000 is 20% again, but over the course of one day.
Yeah,
a 1 day base. That's
crazy. It's just that fast. So you got to be, kind of watching the smaller charts. And that's what I was talking about here. When I did a video update and I talked about this double bottom. And then I talked about, when it started breaking the downtrend line on this here. That was kind of my entry, right? It was a low risk
with 10,000 right there as well. Just a couple signals.
It was a lot of things. On the daily chart, it held the moving average at that point. It hit a key Fibonacci level at that point. So there's never certainty when you're doing analysis here, but I mean, this was my signal that I thought, okay, that was a pullback. It's pausing. It's holding so far. I got back in, and that worked out. So it's holding up, but now it's going straight up here.
Straight up.
And as I mentioned in my newsletter earlier today, it is going parabolic, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a sell signal, because if you do have that moon shoot and you get out now, you don't know where it's going to end. It could go to 14, 15.
I know. So Moon Knight here mentions 12,000 or 1,200% in 1 year isn't too much. Well, let me address that. What I say on my channel all the time is that our opinions don't matter. You can think 1,200% is too much, but go ahead and send Bitcoin an email and let him know your opinion. It's going to have as much weight as that. It's not going to weigh anything. So our opinions mean nothing. You really just have to go with the charts, and that's pretty much all it is. So it can go to 15 and go to 20,000. It really doesn't matter. I mean, sometimes when I think about what Bitcoin's doing and I look at the charts and I think about, the futures coming out, and that's going to happen in 2 or 3 days?
Next week.
Yeah. That's gonna happen next week. So is that gonna put a top in, kind of like we saw with the fork? Are we gonna have a correction at that point, or are we gonna have a high level base? In other words, like everyone was thinking Bitcoin's gonna drop down. Oh, I want Bitcoin 5,000. I want to accumulate at 5,000. Well, I'm sorry, it's probably not going to get back to 5,000. Maybe it holds like a long-term bottom base at 10,000, 15,000.
Exactly. It depends on how high it goes before it pulls back.
Yeah, exactly. It could go to 15, 20,000, and then from 20,000 was a 30% pullback.
Yeah.
Right. Which would be completely normal. Back to where normal.
We're at now, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So just for those of you guys that are just joining, I've got Real Crypto in the house. He's a friend of mine. I've known him for a long time. We've traded stocks and options and a bunch of other stuff over the years. And he's got a channel too. Then he covers a lot of similar things. We look at charts, and I gave him a call and I said, "Hey, you in the neighborhood?" And he came by, and here we are.
Yeah, I was a mile away, considering we live a mile and a half
Special
away.
guest today, so it's kind of nice to have somebody else on the line.
It's
with
nice
me.
to have a professional here.
You know, it is. Usually I'm just bantering by myself, and people start getting crazy when the delirium shows up. And
yeah,
so we've got a lot of folks starting to join. I see we got Crypto Hedge in the house. We've got a handful of people coming in. And so we're just kind of watching Bitcoin here. It's broke 13,000, 12,000 yesterday. And this thing is just continuing to power higher. The alts got a pretty good hit yesterday. Let's take a look at some of the altcoins and see how it's doing right now. So like we were looking at Vertcoin, and Vertcoin was looking real nice, and still holding up,
down 22%,
relatively
right
good.
now.
But yeah, so let me go to the daily chart here. Right, it was just setting up nice and give you a couple good entries here, give you a secondary entry in the pullback, and then just got smashed with Bitcoin taking off. As of yesterday, was still holding up pretty good, but just today, with Bitcoin going over that 13K mark, it's like everything else. People are just moving into Bitcoin. They're getting out of the alts for the most part. There are some that are starting to say no more, you know, some of the smaller names, but mostly it's just been these tradable pops. You know, you make a quick 10, 15% on the alts, and then you go back into Bitcoin.
And you have to be ready to take those pops off the table. I mean, you have to understand the market that you're in. Part of trading, in fact, most of trading, to be quite honest with you, from what I've seen, Node, is that you have to trade the market you're in. In stocks, you have to look at the leaders in the market. You have to look at the indices. But in crypto, you pretty much have Bitcoin. If Bitcoin's pumping, everything else is going to be lagging. But if you have something that's outperforming, that I think you pay attention to, like we've seen with IOTA right here, right?
Yeah.
We've seen with IOTA, it's been outperforming. We're finally getting a decent pullback in IOTA. You know, who knows if the move is over. But even in IOTA, look at the volume. There's nothing really toppy here.
Yeah.
I mean, it still looks like accumulation. Ever since IOTA came out with the news that they were working with Microsoft.
This breakout here.
Yeah, it hit me instantly. I'm like, these guys are doing the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, just like Ethereum is. And the institutional investors are going to flock to that. The big money is going to flock to that. I think anytime you see any of these platform coins, and keep in mind, the platform coins have been the ones that were running recently.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, we saw EOS ran first. We
Carvana.
saw ADA. We saw Carvana run. But anytime these guys, and I think you're going to see this more and more, where they're going to start partnering up with these Fortune 500 companies.
Yeah.
And the ones that do, you need to pay attention. You take some positions for some really nice trades.
Yep. And, in IOTA yesterday, everybody was asking about it. Do I buy it here? Do I buy it now? And I was telling my group no. Just because the risk is higher. Doesn't mean it can't keep going, but it was going parabolic. And it's just, best case, it's due for a pause, right? It doesn't necessarily mean it crashes, but it's just due for a break, a little bit of a breather. And so that's the thing. So let's go back to some of the other ones. Cardano is another one that was looking pretty good here, and had that huge 200+% run a couple of weeks back or a couple of days ago. Was pausing, and he's got real tight and then just broke down here in recent days. And it's trying to find support here on this daily moving average. So we'll see what happens there on this one. And you can see here today, I was watching it earlier, it was trying to have these pumps, these big volume pumps, but this one just trades crazy volume, and you got bulls and bears on both sides with just huge volume. So just got to watch it for now. Let's see here.
Yeah, one thing with a note on that I go back out to the bigger term view of ADA there. So anytime you have these really big pumps like this, these 200% pumps, this thing had a 50% pump if you go to like the 4 hour, and then it went up another 300%. So I mean, like from these lows, it's up 400+%. Anytime you have a move like that, it's going to take time to consolidate. So if you're looking at this kind of a move and you're looking for, if you consider this like a first base, you're not going to get a first base out of a 400% move. That's the move. Right. If you're looking for something to trade, you have to look at something that is only up 20 to 50%, and then you want to look for that to break out. And then after that, you have to give it time. You can't force the trade at that moment in time. Otherwise, you're just going to get rolled over like a lot of people did with ADA. A lot of people bought the horizontal movement in ADA.
It's preemptive, though.
It's preemptive, though. You can't. If you go back to Litecoin did the same thing last night. We were talking about that earlier before we went on air.
Yeah, I was watching it all day yesterday, but I didn't take it. I was waiting for it.
Yeah, you have to wait for it to break out. If it breaks down, you have to respect that, and then wait for some bottoming action and some appropriate price action. So you have to
Yeah.
check out the volume, you have to check out the price action. It's all correlated.
So let's pull up the link that I sent out a little while ago with the newsletter and kind of talk about. I want to get your thoughts on, what's the move, what's the futures do, and so we'll go from there. And so, if you're just joining us, guys, I've got Real Crypto here in the house live with a Node investor. We're just talking charts. We're looking at 13K. I'm going to be talking my thoughts around the futures, the move we're seeing right now in Bitcoin. How high does it go? When does it correct? If it does, how far do we pull back? And we'll go from there. So if you missed it, I posted my FUD edition of my newsletter this week, and I just sent that out a little while ago. I'll go ahead and open that up here. And, I'm very clear in the newsletter. I'm not saying sell here, and I'm not saying definitely don't go short here, but
don't ever short Bitcoin,
especially not when it's going parabolic. But what I wanted to point out was that curve we're seeing, right? And so let's see here. Let me go to the Bitcoin chart.
He says 13.5 now.
Yeah, on GDAX, it's just pumping super hard. So that's GDAX. Just
going to be a tall bar.
Yeah. Just crossing 13 on Bitfinex. GDAX about to hit 13.5.
Who's doing that arbitrage trade between that $400 spread right there?
Hell, between Korea and this one. And so actually, let's go look at that. I'll show you guys Korea here before we get back into the newsletter I sent out. But if you go to the markets, I mean, CoinMarketCap is
hold on, is that 15,000 on BitThumb?
Yeah.
Oh, that's against the KRW though.
Yeah, but I mean they're generally paying a premium anyway, and they have been for some time.
I see 16, or is that my eyes?
No, 14, 15, 13. But that's crazy, and that's the nature of it here, and that's why this average has generally been higher than we've seen on some of the other exchanges like Bitfinex and Bittrex and some of that, because it's just factoring some of that in. So let me see here. Let me pop this over. Let me go back to the tweet and the newsletter that I sent out, so I could scare everybody and then not. So and that's was not my intention, right? My intention was just to where'd my window go here? My intention was to just kind of bring this to your attention. And so what I was talking about here was, just at the beginning of my newsletter, I should have waited, 20 minutes before sending that out. I could have put 13 on there. And it was like November 26th, yay, 9K. November 29th, 10K. The next day, 11K. Yesterday, 12K. Not even 24 hours later, 13K.
Yeah, it's funny. We're really going to have to start.
And so, and granted, the percent difference is smaller the higher it goes, right? Yeah. So it doesn't mean as much as when it went from 4K to 5K. Or from 3 to 4, that's a huge percent. 10 to 11, 11 to 12, 12 to 15 is not as big, but it's still significant. I mean, it's huge, especially considering where we came from at the start of the year. And so what I wanted to talk about here, and I pulled this chart up earlier, was, this big curve that it's doing. It's no longer in this parallel channel like we were talking about. After November, it really started to shift higher. And really September was that transition I started to notice. And then, I kind of said this is not an automatic sell, because if it goes parabolic, and these are rare moves, but when they happen, the top could go 20, 30, 40% in no time, right? So selling here and trying to call the top is a fool's errand, in my opinion. Going short is just insane right now. People have been calling the top of Bitcoin since 5K. And then 7,500 was the big top. And people were saying, that's it. That's the top for the year, and we're out. Yeah. And then, and that's fine if you sell, because you can always get back in. But if you short, that's just really dangerous. And so it's still going, right? 10K was the top, 11K is the top, and people are just saying, how far do we go? And so that was my point in this newsletter, was I'm not saying sell, because it could go parabolic and we could see the blow off. And you could see that climactic volume come in. And one thing I did mention was the futures starting up next week. And it would not surprise me that they continue to pump this until then and support the prices, because then that'll give the big money crowd the opportunity to go short and make, capitalize on the downside via the futures markets. And so So is it extended? Yes, absolutely. If you don't think Bitcoin is extended, you're not looking at the charts right, because it is extended. And so we are definitely due at least for a pause, a pullback, some sort of a reset. And so there's a couple of ways I think it could play out. Best case scenario, we kind of just flatten out and chop and flop here between 13 and 10K for a couple of weeks, right? Or even a month or two, and just build this new support level. That would be best case scenario.
Because then the alts would have a chance to move at that point. Because
yes,
the alts have been moving when Bitcoin's just going static. I mean,
when
Bitcoin
pauses, like we saw around the 8,300 level, huge runs in the alts. And as soon as Bitcoin broke out to 9, all the money came right back into Bitcoin. And now you have these handful that have clearly been on their own, right?
There's always going to be a few.
And there always will be.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking that's best case is like it just sits here. Now worst case, the scary scenario, right? People are talking about, we go up and then we have a 50% pullback, some sort of big crash. And then what tends to happen there, right, is
that's going to happen.
The fundamentals are just so strong that I'm not thinking 50% yet. But what tends to happen there is if you do see that, it's going to make for some tremendous buying opportunities as well as trading opportunities, because you get these big pullbacks and then these massive oversold bounces that are like 40-50% to the upside.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about this for a while, because my last video I put out didn't happen, obviously, but if you watch it, it wasn't a FUD video, but some people took it as such. But I talked about the past two 70% corrections we've had in Bitcoin, and I think those days are over. I think it's done. I think with the futures coming out, there's going to be institutions that are going to have very long-term positions, and they're not going to want to see that investment go down.
Yeah.
And at the same time, like if we think in terms of institutions, right? I mean, you and I come from stock background, but it's basically U.S. Now we're global.
It's global.
It's global. So say Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan say they want to tank it, then you have China China's going to notice that. They're probably going to step aside, let it happen, and then at whatever point, whenever some big guy starts to put the bottom in, that bottom's going to happen, and it's going to happen within 2 hours.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing. These markets just move so fast, and they're global, like you said. 24/7. And so, like, it's not unusual to see those annoying Friday midnight my time drops.
Which is why we're not sleeping anymore.
You got to jump back on.
Yeah. But it's funny because they can't collude anymore. Like you know Wall Street, those guys call each other all the time. I mean, they're on the phones. They got a Google Hangout chat room. They're just probably chatting in all the time. It's on some server they can burn at any moment. But it's hard being global. So even with the futures coming in, I've seen a lot of conspiracy theories over, they're going to go ahead and tank Bitcoin. Well, the only reason that they would tank Bitcoin is to accumulate it. I don't know anyone that wants Bitcoin to go away. Not that it could even happen. But there's really no reason. The only reason they would short Bitcoin is because they have a long physical Bitcoin position, hedging.
And you can hedge it. Right?
And you can hedge it. That's the only reason that they want to do it.
Is you can hedge them that way.
Yeah.
And no, that's a good point, right? And so like Mike Novogratz here recently said we're going to hit 10K before the end of the year. That happened. And then he says we could easily reach 40,000 by the end of next year. And based on the trajectory, yeah, right. I mean,
sure.
We went up 5, 10 times, whatever it is this year.
Yeah, without a pullback.
Then that's a 3x, right? So
we could just stay in your channel.
Yeah. No, but he did say that he could see a 50% pullback along the way to that 40K mark, right?
Oh yeah,
and that makes sense
for sure. And when that happens, it's hard to know. The only thing you can do as a trader is just respect the charts. Respect the charts. If you're a hodler, you're probably not even watching this video. But if you're a trader, you're subject to emotions and fear and greed like the rest of us. And if you're wondering if Bitcoin's topping, the best thing you can do is pull out a daily chart. Go to the longer term time frames. Pull out a 4-hour chart. If you think it's really topping, maybe then you dive into like a 15-minute chart to see if there's a huge candle.
Right.
Because that's typically what I do. Like if I look on the daily, like if you do that with Bitcoin, when we had this big candle here, the biggest doji candle in history, if you go in there, you can see the big drop on the 15-minute. It was like 3 or 4 bars that were just massive. And then obviously, as we know, a few hours later, we saw just as much volume on the downside, giving it a bottom. I mean, it was pretty intense. But that's what you have to look for is that topping action. So if you're wondering what topping Bitcoin looks like, it looks like that.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? So like I told everybody, this never even breached the daily, right? This was just a normal pullback. It was a big percent, but it never breached the daily. And so that's you got to consider both sides, right? If you're hodling, you just more of the long-term view, and I do both. I'll do my trading account as well as my just kind of my core holdings.
Sure.
And yeah, that's how I approach it, right? Core holdings, I move a lot slower because I'm waiting for the bigger trend change. Trading, you're a lot more nimble. You're moving in and out. You're trading between alts and Bitcoin and cash and whatever.
Yeah.
And so
now you want to do me a favor, draw a trend line. Draw that trend line right there at the bottom. This is one thing that I would actually draw it down from that.
Oh, from that point there.
Draw it down from that very bottom candle. So I would look for this trend line to break. That would be my first clue that the uptrend would be over.
Sure. That's a pretty steep trend line there too.
And it is a pretty steep trend line. Like, especially when you zoom out, it's really steep. But
Yeah.
you know, we looked at it over here and we were above that trend line, you know, with those 2 points right there at 82.50 and then down here at the 54.50 level. But it had a little spike below it right there the next day, and then boom, it's been up above it ever since. So it's going to keep running as long as it's above that trend line. It could even go sideways at this point for like 4 days.
Yep.
And still respect that trend line. So the uptrend is still intact, and that's what you have to respect. And that is how you can, you know, hey, am I in an uptrend? Is Bitcoin topping? When it crosses that trend line, that puts a huge question mark on the move.
Yeah, absolutely. And it'll be fast when it happens. It'll be a big volume, and that'll be a big volume reversal.
Probably.
That's generally how it happens.
Yeah, probably.
It would be great if Bitcoin went sideways here for a little bit. That would give the alts some time to bounce and trade and give you some good rallies there.
Yeah, and look at how big that bar is too that we've had so far today. It's in line with the biggest bar outside of that doji.
Yeah.
It's pretty much in line with these bigger days right there.
Yep. Yep. Now we hit 12 yesterday, and I was telling my group, well, we'll see you at 13 tomorrow, and sure enough, here we are at 13, and who knows how far it goes. So some of you guys are asking about this article I was reading here. This is a newsletter I sent out earlier today. I did post this on Twitter, so if you follow me on Twitter at noteinvestor.com or at noteinvestor on Twitter. I sent this out about an hour ago, and if you subscribe already, then you should have got that by now. But just some thoughts I was sharing. So I was looking at, you know, some fib retracements here over the last year, and we've had several pretty good pullbacks, right? So if you look at just this move from April up to that first peak around 3,000, the first fib came. It's hard to see because it's a little wick, but it came almost right to the penny, right?
61 level.
And then it rallied from there, and then we had the next peak right before 5K. And then we had the little shakeout that culminated in that shakeout all the way down to 3K. And that was the whole China, Jamie Fudd.
Both of those were 40%.
Yeah.
Both of those were 40% moves.
And that came exactly again to that 618 fib. And huge volume came up on this one.
Yeah,
and then from this point, we had a rally that took us to that recent high around, you know, just under 8,000. That was that big intraday when they canceled the SegWit 2X.
Yeah, look at that. It looks like nothing.
And it looks like
Remember
nothing
how big
now.
that looked?
And this was my epic 5-hour live stream, right, where I saw the breakdown, and then we came down all the way to $5,500 overnight, and then just had the huge rally.
Yeah.
And then from there, and this one didn't quite hit that retracement.
And that was
just
only
a very shallow pullback.
That was only a 30% pullback.
And it was. And so assuming that was, you know, taking a low from that point, and you know, this is just me guessing. I'm not saying it's the top. I'm not saying we top here at 13K or whatever, right? This was just to make an example. Even if it did decide to pull back here, right? The first retracement is going to take you to just above 10K, 10.4, 10.5. The next one would take you down to 8,500. Most likely it'd be somewhere in the middle, right? It'd be somewhere in between, because even, I mean, look at how extended we are from the 10 EMA. It would quickly break that moving average. So I don't think that 382 level would hold on this first pullback.
Well, and that's almost right. Well, depending when it breaks, that's almost right where that trend line is.
Exactly, depending on when it decides to correct, right?
Yeah.
And then there's always the deeper pullback here, right? So it's just, that's all I was trying to make my point in that newsletter was, if it started to top here, I mean, to give you a little bit of an idea of, okay, if it goes down to 10.4 and decides to base out here, that would be wonderful, because I mean, it would just build this new support level, and we would be off to the races again after that, right? So
you're thinking something like over here in the something like that,
something like this, right?
That little pause right there.
We saw this pullback and then this kind of pause for, you know, a month or so, a month and a half. I mean, that would be awesome, right? So Versus, yeah, everybody wants to see 20K Bitcoin tomorrow. I get that. But the problem
Let's
is,
do it. Let's do it.
It just
Node's calling it right now.
It just doesn't end well when we have that sort of blow off top. So
yeah, and I think that's the thing a lot of people don't realize, especially if you're new to trading. And when you have a parabolic move like this, you have to be in at a lower level. Otherwise, you just have to watch, because you don't know when it's going to break. You don't know when it's going to fail, unless you're in a position where you can watch it 24/7, or have some like really good stop losses that you're okay with, and that's part of your trading plan. It's really hard to jump in on these parabolic moves and really profit at extreme levels.
Look at the RSI on this thing here. It's bumping over 90 now. How do we look on the 4-hour chart?
Where is it, 200?
4-hour charts, still crawling up, so we still have some more room technically there.
Yeah, on the 4-hour.
But the MACD signal lines are just
MACD's at 1300.
They're going to busters here.
Okay, so do you guys know what happens when the MACD goes to 1300? Does anyone know the answer to that one? No. Do you know what happens when MACD goes to 1300?
What happens?
I don't know. I was hoping someone knew, because
nothing happens. You know what happens?
I don't think it's ever happened. I think the MACD's broken at this point.
When it goes to 1300, it goes to 15. That's what happens. So
I think it's broken.
Yeah. So let's take a look at some of the other charts. So those of you that are just joining, I've got Rio Crypto in the house, live, sitting side by side with the Node investor. I gave him a call earlier and I said, "What are you doing, man?" He said, "I'm getting lunch." I said, "Screw lunch. Come over. Let's do a live stream."
That's right.
And so here he is.
He wouldn't let me eat lunch.
He showed up with a delicious looking In-N-Out hamburger and didn't bring me one.
I was already checked out. I already talked about that.
I had just had lunch.
I feel bad.
Called. And so we're just looking at the charts. It was more the 13K prompting that said, "You know what? I'm going to go live, midday live stream. Let's do this." Let's take a look at the charts. And it's good times. The rocket ship continues to go, ladies and gentlemen. So
are we failing now? We're back down at only 13,000. I think the move's done.
Oh my God, it's crashing.
I think we're done, guys. I think we crashed Bitcoin.
So Rio Crypto's got his own channel if you're not familiar, and anything he says here live with the Node Investor is not an endorsement by me. So his views and my views very often are aligned, but not always. And that's cool. That's the beauty of it. And so actually, I think our investment styles actually complement each other, to be honest with you. We have a lot of good views, but we also take things from different perspectives. Yeah.
I think that helped us back when we were trading stocks too. It was like you with a lot of your
it usually works like this. Randy
sends
me a text and it says, "Hey, I'm thinking of," or no, it works like this. I usually say, "Hey, I'm going to sell IOTA," and then he goes all in, and then it goes parabolic. And so that's usually how
that happened with ADA and with IOTA. Thank you for keep sending me texts. Thank you.
No, well,
keep sending me text messages.
He said Bitcoin top, so I bought a whole bunch, and then it went up $1,000 after that.
Yeah, so. But so yeah, it goes back and forth, right? It goes back and forth.
It's all good. So good times. All right, so let's take a look at these. So we're looking at Bitcoin on Bitfinex, kind of just pausing here a little bit. Hit 1300. It was 13.5 on Coinbase earlier, 13.6. This is a Bcash. And so, Bitcoin Cash.
I don't
want to get Roger all over me here.
I don't even understand why everyone's all pissed off. What is that?
It's not everyone. It's one person.
Yeah, I know, but it's like, really, come on. Bcash, Bitcoin does.
So Bitcoin.
Why'd you fork if you care that much? Why'd you fork if you care that much?
So here's what I was looking at on this chart here. I've been watching this set up for a little bit here. On the daily USD chart, right? Trend,
the head and shoulders,
the lows are getting tighter here. And, initially I thought maybe Bitcoin Cash is kind of like the counterbalance when Bitcoin decides to pull back. And that didn't happen when it had that little hit off of 11K.
Yep.
Everything took a hit, right? So I was watching that, seeing this potential here, but it's just not ready yet. And you can see it breaking down here, continue to just kind of break support here. I was watching this purple line yesterday and thinking maybe it holds here. This is a place for it to bounce, but it's not.
Yeah, and I think that's something, especially with Bitcoin Cash, there's been a lot of, it's the antithesis to Bitcoin. Like if Bitcoin goes up, this has to go down and vice versa. It's not that way. I mean, it may work for a day or two, but you can also make that argument for any coin, right? You could really make that argument for any coin. I mean, otherwise you wouldn't have these two bottoms right here. Bitcoin isn't double topping right now.
Right. Yep.
I always think that's an interesting way how people try to take their views on the certain coin or currency and try to mold it into their view of how the ecosystem trades. And they're not even necessarily correlated, which is very, very misleading, because then you're trading off of a false narrative.
Yeah.
You know, some people will take, like we talked earlier about with Litecoin, you can't take the preemptive position. You have to wait for the breakout, you know?
All right, so let's keep going here. Let's look at the big three. So Ethereum, Litecoin. And so those of you that listen to me normally, I am losing my voice a little bit. This is the 4th live stream I've done in the last day and a half. And I did a couple with the group, and did one late last night, and all been fun, but definitely wearing on the voice here.
I know. Maybe do USD.
So
the Bitcoin's just been.
So
pumping.
this is the Ethereum BTC pair, and you can see it just got smashed overnight. And when Bitcoin broke out here, you can see that was the big break. It was right at a key support level. Once it broke that, you can see the volume came in, selling out. But just look at how oversold that is versus Bitcoin. RSI is at 8.2. Like
8.2.
I don't know if I've ever seen it that low before. How low is it back here? I mean, that's just crazy low RSI on that 4-hour chart versus Bitcoin. You almost have to think like this is going to bounce here soon, and might have a pretty decent rally when it does.
Find one. Go to IOP Bitcoin. It's down 25%. Let's see what that RSI is right there. IOP
Internet
Bitcoin.
people.
If you want to look for low RSI. Oh, it's only
Not
40.
even that low.
That's not even low. Oh, it had a pump the other day. That's
Yeah.
why.
So
Never mind.
you know, Ethereum USD kind of putting these double rounded top. Don't like to see that, but it is due for a bounce. I mean, it's just really low. Let's look at Litecoin real quick before we move to the others. I was watching this one yesterday for a potential breakout. I thought it was getting close, kind of rolling over here, not keeping up with Bitcoin. And it really had been up until lately. It was doing pretty good and just kind of tracking to Bitcoin. Again, this RSI hit some pretty extreme levels, and it's starting to bounce here, but that's all it is at this point. It's just a bounce.
Yeah, it looks like it's just going to fail again.
You know, and these are nice little trades. If you make the quick
Bitcoin.
trades, right? if you're buying these trades, I mean, you can get yourself an extra, 8-10% and then flip back into BTC, right?
If it works.
And so if you catch those,
if it works,
they're quick, but right now that's all it's until it confirms it's just a bounce.
I think it's too high up here though. Like I think you're taking a real risk buying here. Like you look at this last screen.
Oh no, I'm saying like if you catch the bottoms here, like when you see these extreme lows, you take a trade at that point.
Yeah, you got to be low.
And you got to really just watch the like the 15 minutes or something like that for those signals. When you see,
you have to buy like at the next candle open at the most. At the most,
volume is a telltale. I use volume a lot for that because it tends to be climactic at the bottoms and at the top. And you can see, look at that sell volume. That was just people saying, "That's it.
I'd take that down.
I'm done." And when you see that kind of volume, you take a little bit of a trade and bounce it.
Yeah.
So that's the big three there versus BTC, Litecoin. Let's take a look at some of the other names.
Let's look at the big four. Put IOTA up there.
Oh,
IOTA's number 4 on CoinMarketCap.
Is it really?
Yes,
I thought it was 5 here.
No, it was 4. It passed Ripple. IOTA passed Ripple in about a day. It was at number 9. Yeah, it was sitting just above Cardano. It was sitting just above Cardano up there. Yeah. And then it didn't like its new neighbor, so it decided to pump its way back up there to the penthouse suite.
Oh man, IOTA. All right, let's take a look at IOTA here. It's finally giving us a little bit of a pause.
You don't have IOTA? Come on.
Yeah, I'm sure I do.
IoT.
So pulling in, looking like it wants to hold some levels here on the 4-hour charts. Let's go to the daily real quick.
Oh, the daily's just basically.
So that was a big doji reversal candle on the daily. If it closes like that, it's still got some time to close for the day, but that's just a big volume reversal. So it's due for a pause. It was way oversold or overbought, definitely extended. If we do a fib on just this recent move, I think we might be at the 6.8 now. No, not quite.
Not quite.
Came down about halfway through.
And honestly, I don't think IOTA's done. You don't really have topping volume here. It's still accumulation volume. I'm not saying it's going to continue up tomorrow or the next day, but over the course of the next couple of weeks, I think this thing goes back up towards the highs, if not higher. We'll have to see what the technicals are like up there at that towards the 45 level there.
Yeah.
But
it was extended.
There's nothing climactic about that volume. It's just steady. That is steady accumulation. That is steady accumulation.
So I had a bunch of people asking me yesterday, do I buy IOTA? Do I buy it here? And I told them no, because I said it's high risk. And I go, unless you're willing to hold through like a 20 or 30% pullback.
Yeah,
and
that's tough.
There you go. That's exactly what you saw today. So if you wanted it yesterday and you were calling me here at these levels,
yeah,
this might be the secondary entry you're looking for. But.
And I have to say, anytime you're looking at a coin that's that high and you don't have someone to kind of bounce a trade off of, just think to yourself, do I want to hold through a 30% correction? Because that's pretty much that's at least what you're going to deal with.
Yeah.
That's at least what you're going to deal with. So, yeah, but really, I mean, I hope everybody knows this by now that's been kind of trading cryptos for a while. I know there's a lot of people out there that are brand new, kind of speaking to them as well, but you have to buy out of a base. You have to buy out of an area that's already been sold off into, shown support, and is curling back up. Otherwise, it's literally just a gamble. Now, for IOTA over the past 3 days, you could have bought it anywhere and pretty much and almost still be profitable, except for the past, 12 hours?
Past couple of bars there, yep.
Yeah, except for like the past 12 hours. But other than that,
USD holding up nicely too.
Yeah, this is not a normal move, everyone. This is the move of a true leader in the space. You don't move from number 9 to number 4 in like 3 days without a lot of money coming in, without a lot of people actually believing in it. So it's a leader. This is not a small coin. This is number 4. This isn't like your, $30 million coin that jumped, 200%.
and it wasn't a fork.
No, it wasn't a fork. And its market cap was $2 billion before.
I know.
It was not a small coin. I would have jumped on the scene at like 800 million. And then pretty quickly it was sitting at 2 billion, just kind of sitting there. And then
no, good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see. Good pullback here on this daily chart. Let's cycle through a couple more of these leaders here.
Just looks like a base. That just looks like a base.
Yep. Starting to bounce here.
Yeah, and this is what we said before. You can't force your opinions on the market. You have to respect the charts.
So let's do Dash. Dash was rolling over here. I didn't like the big top.
Like was it? I haven't been paying attention.
It was sitting tight for a while, looking like it wanted to keep going. And I don't like to see these rounded tops or just really start to look weak.
Yeah.
And so this is on the 4 hour.
Pay attention to that pattern.
Now on the daily, it's right at the 10 EMA, right? So it's still, if it can bounce here, it's just fine. But and versus BTC, definitely underperforming the last week or so.
I don't think you can chart off BTC with a lot of these at this point.
You can see the big smashing ahead yesterday here, broke that trend line I was watching. But just, in the near term, it just feels like it's starting to roll over here. So if you're holding Dash, just kind of keep an eye on this one here. Be cautious because it's had a good run. And, I mean, just after it broke 300, it just went straight to 8 almost. So
it did. Yeah, that's the same thing it did before, too, when it broke out of its prior level of, 120 or something a couple of months ago. Just, boom, popped right up.
So, yeah, that was that big base around 200. And it went straight to 4.
Up. Yeah, yep. Just went straight up.
So Dash, let's see what else we got here. Bitcoin Gold. I haven't looked at this one in a while. Let's go take a look at how that one's doing. If anybody cares about their Bitcoin Gold, like I didn't even, other than the stuff I had on the exchanges, like I didn't even get my Bitcoin Gold.
I'm just holding mine.
Just like whatever.
It's a free coin. I'm just gonna hold it. Maybe it does a Bitcoin Cash like move and gets up towards 1,000 at some point.
So I put this little trend line here on Bitcoin Gold on the daily chart, just kind of watching. This is versus the USD. And so it'd be interesting to see if it holds here. It's below the 10 EMA, which I don't like to see. That's usually that first minimum requirement, like get back above and then looks bullish again, right?
Yeah, but volume's really not doing anything there. So
here's a 4 hour, just kind of pulling in here along with everything else. See if that line holds.
It's just trading neutral right now. Yeah. No trades there, though.
No, I don't think there's anything to do here. Monero, another one that's just been rocking.
Yes, silently making moves. I mean, like really, it's just been.
Monero's doing really good. Had a big move yesterday.
There's your cup with handle right there. Look at that.
But and so people often ask me, like, do I look at BTC charts or do I look at the USD equivalent? And my answer is,
what's your view on that? I'll give my view.
I trade BTC from is it outperforming or not? Because at the end of the day, you want to be up in that BTC. But from a charting perspective and looking for breakouts, I always, not always, but very often, especially for the big names, I will look at the USD chart. And so here's a couple good examples, right? Monero USD was sitting tight here.
Yeah.
And there was two things I was watching. First, early was that break of the trend line here. It finally did. Had a little bit of a tradable rally, but then it went sideways, but it held this $85 mark for a long time.
Yeah.
Now, Bitcoin was still outperforming this, so it wasn't the place to be, but you got to keep an eye on it because it finally had this big volume break to the upside.
Yep.
And that was your signal. And look at what it did from that point on. It was just gone. And that's not always very clear on the Bitcoin chart because it looks like it's just coming off of a big bottom. There's not a base there. There's no clear defined support, right?
Correct.
And so sometimes they correlate, but not always. And then here most recently, right, we had this pattern. This is when Monero was just running.
Yep.
And it was putting this little consolidation versus BTC. And Monero, again, was setting up this little base that I was watching around 200. Thinking it's going to break out again, and it did. And this correlated with the breakout of that symmetrical pattern on the Bitcoin chart. And so I look at both from that perspective, right? And we saw the same thing happen with Ethereum. And if you guys remember, I was talking about Ethereum breaking out of that pattern around 290 or whatever it was before it finally busted out. And, here's the line. And it was getting real choppy here. And I thought, wait for this thing to go, and it's going to have a good run. And absolutely, right? So busted out above that 300, and look where we ended up, right? Almost to 475 or so before it really paused.
Yeah.
And so you got to look at both. You definitely got to take a look at both. But at the end of the day, if your chart looks like this, then you should be in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just.
Yeah, I kind of have the same view, but from a different point of view, I guess. So when I'm looking at a chart, and this is something that people ask me from time to time, like if they're looking at, say, the Ethereum Bitcoin chart, they're like, do I sell my Bitcoin and buy Ethereum? They almost think that it's some people don't understand that you're looking at the same asset. You're just referencing it against something else, right? And that's what you're doing here with these charts.
It's a different base.
Yeah, it's a different base because Bitcoin's very volatile. The only time I look at a Bitcoin chart personally is if I don't have a USD option, because in the end, it doesn't matter if it's Ethereum versus Bitcoin or Omisego versus Bitcoin or Doge versus Bitcoin. You're still investing in the underlying coin. You're investing in Ethereum. You're investing in Litecoin. You're not investing against Bitcoin. But yes, so if you're looking at it against Bitcoin, you're right. If your goal is to accumulate Bitcoins, then yeah, you go ahead and
Sure.
Yeah, you have to invest in it if it's outperforming Bitcoin, because then you can get a little more Bitcoin. But in the end, I think you get a clear view of the pick of the coin against the dollar, because the dollar is essentially as flat as this table. You know what I mean?
Right,
So
it's supposed to be, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So if ADA is jumping and you're looking at it against Bitcoin and Bitcoin's moving, the chart's going to be sideways.
Really flat, right?
It's going to be flat, and you have no way to know that, hey, I could be making money with ADA. But even if you don't have Bitcoin, let's say you're fully invested and nothing's in Bitcoin, and you're looking to get into ADA, and ADA is flat. You're not getting a true picture of what ADA is doing. You're getting it in relation to Bitcoin. So
Sure.
that's why I typically use the USD chart. But there's some of them that they don't even give you that option.
I noticed you use them quite a bit.
And that's I just try to get the
sure.
Yeah, the picture of the coin, not against Bitcoin.
And I tend to use BTC charts as my default.
Yeah.
But I'll look at the USDs to just look for patterns in some of those breakouts. And it can be a little confusing, especially like if you're not familiar with like Forex trading, where they trade different pairs all the time.
Yeah.
Right? You look at the Euro Aussie dollar, or the Yen dollar, or the Yen Euro, or the Yen, everything, right? It's a little confusing, but at the end of the day, you're trying to gain versus whatever your native currency is.
Yep.
Because that's how you'll cash out. So
yeah, I think that's the thing that a lot of new people don't understand. Like if you haven't traded at all and you hear about cryptos and you're all excited about the possibilities, now you have to learn a whole different ecosystem, a whole different language, essentially, because every industry has its own language. And so we're talking against BTC, against USD. Well, they may not understand what that means.
Yeah, and I get that question a lot, and it is certainly confusing, right? Because you're saying, well, what do I measure it against? Do I look at my portfolio in BTC value? Do I look at it in USD? Do I look at it in both? And usually the answer is yes.
I know, right?
It's both.
And it's all relative, and it's all important. It all has its own weight depending on what your particular strategy is.
Or if you're, if you're looking at it in Euro, or just wherever you're from, right? And this is a very global audience, and that's what I like about crypto is every live stream I do, I've got people from you name it.
I know, it's pretty fun.
There's people here, and it's so cool. And it doesn't matter what time it is.
And there's always someone from Australia up.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why you guys are up from Australia, but
Australia, New Zealand, you guys are in the house.
Yeah, you guys are always around.
The other night it was probably, I think it was 1 a.m. my time, and people from Boston and Toronto were on the line with me, and it was like
I know.
middle of the morning, and we had Tel Aviv, and we had South Africa and Australia. It was just crazy.
I think I was watching your live stream when you were calling out. You're like, "Where are you guys from?"
Oh yeah,
I was actually I was there
on that one.
I think that was at 1 a.m.
Yeah,
I think that was at 1 a.m.
And that's just
That was
normal.
Bitcoin 10,000. I think that was your live stream for 10,000.
I think that was
Yeah.
or maybe it was 9. It doesn't matter. That was like two days ago.
Yeah, right. I know. I don't think I've
Fast as-
slept since then.
Fast as this thing. All right, let's
Look at
change the
Neo.
chart.
Someone's asking for Neos. Oh, about 8 people.
This chart's getting scary to look at. Let's go look.
Yeah,
at
I know.
something
Let's
else
not
here.
look at that one. I'm getting depressed.
All right, so
Still taking some Xanax.
So Neo, there's a couple lines here that I was watching. Let me clear some of this stuff. The very long term on the daily chart, I've been watching this versus BTC, right? This trend. And it was a little bit of a descending triangle I was trying to put in. And this purple line here was the top of that prior base up here.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking this is a must hold. It's got to hold. It bounced, undercut a little bit, and then just started a rally here again a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Put a little trade on
Decent
Neo.
volume. Decent volume.
Yeah, and I got on this. Didn't confirm yet because it didn't break this trend line.
Yep.
And then it was a pretty tight stop. Got stopped out. And good thing I did, right? Because when I got stopped out, it pretty much went back into Bitcoin here. And let me show you where I got stopped out at. On the 4-hour chart, you can see that little red
Okay.
that red highlight. And this is the importance of stops, which is why I hammer this point so much, right?
Yeah.
Because if you don't have a stop and you're not paying attention, right, you just, you would have avoided 20% plus to the downside versus Bitcoin.
And with it being a 24/7 market, it's
And it's hard. And this is trading
it's
account.
difficult.
Long-term holds, obviously it's harder to do because you don't generally keep it on the exchanges. And
Yeah.
so I get that. But if you're trading, you got to have stops.
Yeah, and we saw Bitcoin last night. I mean, actually, it was part of the 4 hours I slept last night. But you saw him hit the stops last night in the Bitcoin chart.
Yeah.
You could literally,
Yeah,
you could
they
literally
were.
look at it. They came all the way back down to the prior little base. It was like a 3-bar consolidation that may have even been the 2-hour chart. Boom, hit it and came all the way right back up. That is them hitting the stops. If you guys put stops in, the big money can see that in the order book. So I'm not advocating against stops. To Node's point, you have to have the stops in there, but you have to understand your trading strategy.
And a lot of their conditionals too, right? You can do those where the trade will trigger afterwards, or you can do hidden
Yeah,
trades.
Bittrex has that.
It just depends on the platform. Some will
Yeah.
let you do that, or even trailing stops was cool. I wish most places did trailing stops.
And you
They
said,
don't.
yeah, like you said, Binance doesn't have any stops at all.
Binance
And
doesn't
Binance
have
has
any
no
stops.
stops. It's like, woohoo! It's like, here, let's just buy something. Don't worry about the rest of it.
So here's the thing with Neo though that I've been watching, right? Neo USD. If you look at the daily charts, it's still tightening up quite a bit right here, and in and around this 37 mark, there's a little bit of a battle going
It's
on.
just chopping.
And it's very choppy, but if it starts to clear this, let's call it the 42 area, I really do think you're going to see new highs here if it clears this on the USD. So that's another reason why I look at both, because if you see a breakout here,
Yeah.
the BTC equivalent might still look ugly for a while until it confirms. And from here to this trend line, if you're waiting for the trend line to break, that's like a double from here, right? That you're just too
What's
much,
that? That's quite
right? That's
quite
89%
on the Bitcoin
on
chart.
the Bitcoin chart. So you can't always wait for that, right? You got to look at both.
And you knew people always pay attention to what the chart is when people show you charts, whether it's versus Bitcoin or versus the dollar.
Yeah. So that's Neo. So if you're in it, you're probably feeling the pain here a little bit. On the indicator side, it's definitely starting to hit a little bit of these oversold conditions, but that doesn't necessarily mean it bounces. It just could go sideways here for a little bit, right?
Yeah,
So
oversold can get more oversold and stay under oversold, and same with undersold, right? It can
it can
maintain.
stay that way for a while, just like Bitcoin has. So let's go back to Bitcoin. We even looked at it here in a little bit. So we were watching this earlier, kind of maintaining these highs. It's going to take a granular look. This is the 1 hour chart. And it got pretty extended on the 1 hour versus the moving average, and just pausing here. But look at that volume though, just super strong.
And it's steady.
And it's steady. This is on Bitstamp, and then Coinbase / GDAX had it at 3,500. It was as much as 36 earlier, 37. So
yeah. That's a lot of green.
35 and change, 36.
Yeah, but the volume is just great on that break of that 12.8 level right there.
Still being accumulated there.
That volume, it's still being. And so this is the thing, we're involved in these markets every day, right? So we kind of have this granular perspective, but if you're looking at it from an institutional standpoint, as a trader, sometimes it's hard to think like that. You're looking at these moves, and that's what we talk about. We talk about the moves and the signals, but depending on your strategy, you have to have that longer term perspective to understand that okay, even though it looks like it's really high, looking at the volume and respecting the chart, it's still moving and it's still going, and you just have to be in it.
Yeah.
You just have to be in it. Not saying you buy here. For those of you, what do I do now? Do I buy Bitcoin? Do I sell my Bitcoin? What do I do? Well, if you have Bitcoin, you hold it. There's no reason to sell it up here. If you don't have Bitcoin and you want to get in, you have to wait for a pause like you see there at that 12.8 level. Otherwise, you're just going to be sitting on dead money for a while, probably have a paper loss. That's all but guaranteed. And yeah, you just kind of have to do what the chart tells you to do.
Cool. Let's take a quick pause here. We've got quite a few new viewers coming online here recently. So for those of you just joining, you might have guessed. I've got a guest with me here. I've got Rio Crypto in the house. Give him a call. I said, let's do a live stream together. And here he is hanging out with the Node Investor Live. We started off the talking about Bitcoin and a little article I posted earlier on my newsletter. I sent this out. So if you don't get it, go to Twitter at Node Investor and you can see the link there. And what I was talking about here is Bitcoin close to a top? And just some thoughts. Now, I'm not saying sell. That was not my sell recommendation or anything, but it was just some thoughts to consider, right? And the potential for a parabolic blow off top here. And we could see more upside and very big if that happens. And so that's out there. And for those of you that are new to crypto, new to trading and investing in this space, technical analysis, do offer a video course. So I know a lot of you guys have bought that and I've heard a lot of good reviews. And $49 gives you quite a bit of material, about 4.5 hours of video. So you don't have to read anything. It's all video. And so I just recently added a money management / risk management section to that. If you already have access to the course, then you got that for free. So you should go back and watch that. I highly recommend that. So nodeinvestor.com/training is where you can find that. So, and it's also linked on the top of my Twitter here if you want to look at that. So I've got Rio Crypto in the house. We're just talking charts. We're talking altcoins. The Bitcoin rally, the rocket ship continues. And we went through 10K, 12K, 11K, 13K here pretty quick here in the last couple of days, weeks. And so it's been exciting. And so, I just while we're here, let's take a little poll here from the audience. What's the relative newness of the group here? So
how long have you been trading?
If you have not bought any Bitcoin, I want to know. Is there any new people out there that are just coming back and are just getting into this here? And if you have, anybody who's bought it in the last like 1 or 2 months, I'm just curious to see how many people out there. I know a lot of you guys have been around for a while, have bought it, but it's just always interesting to see the audience. And I know we've got a lot of new people coming in, and you can see Coinbase just blowing up, right? New accounts coming in like crazy.
Yeah, more than Charles Schwab now.
You bought 3 days ago for the first time. Congratulations. See, you've already up $1,000. 2 weeks, 2 months. February this year, a month ago, since June. I know it's been a big year for a lot of people. A lot of people really started coming into the space this year. October.
August 2000 or right. 201. Very nice.
3 weeks ago, first time.
30 minutes ago.
Very cool. You've been in crypto trading since 2013.
That guy's 2001.
2001.
That's awesome.
Oh, wow.
So okay. You bought, so someone gave you a million Bitcoins, right?
That was
just to try it out.
That was pre-Satoshi.
Yeah, I know.
So Bitcoin made hit 15K, it really could. And, let's from a percentage basis, let's look at that. That's really not that far away.
It's the next line on your chart.
Percent-wise, And the thing is, these K values, these next $1,000 doesn't mean as much the higher it goes. It's still cool and it's still exciting, but it's, it's 13, 14% away from current prices. So
97, very nice.
So yeah. 97. That's trading. I'm thinking stocks. So cool. You bought ETH at 409 in June. You probably wrote it down and wrote it back up. So you have been well adjusted to the crypto space.
Yeah,
Very cool.
I think these are the kinds of moves that everyone's been looking for in Bitcoin, right? These are the kind of things that people are. That's why you're here. You're here to watch Bitcoin go from whatever to whatever, but you want it to double, triple. And I think something interesting from this perspective is that we are in a parabolic move in Bitcoin. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
You know, we're living in the parabolic 2017. I mean, it's going to be known. It's going to be known.
This is the year, yeah.
Yeah, this is the year when Bitcoin went mainstream.
Someone said my 20K live stream will cover 20 to 25K. And that's probably true.
Yeah, probably 20% move in 12 hours. Do a 12-hour live stream that day. Well, that's what happened when it went from what, 5 to 6K.
Yeah, Google kicks me out at YouTube kicks me out at 8 hours.
Does it really?
Yeah, which I don't want to try, so it's okay. I'm good. All right, so let's take a look at a couple others here. I know we've been going for I don't know, an hour and a half now or so, and we'll do a few more here, and then we'll wrap it up, and we'll maybe be on a little bit later this evening, depending on what the action of the market does here. So let's take a look at, just kind of cycle down the list, some of the big names. We already covered Cardano, we covered that. ARK was one I was watching, and a lot of these are going to be real similar. They were setting up nice, but they just got that smackdown yesterday overnight when Bitcoin broke out. But this one's still not looking too bad from a long-term perspective. I'm still watching this little pattern, and it's getting close to resolving itself. It tried yesterday, tried to break out, failed, but versus USD was breaking out to new highs as well. And it's kind of been real shaky here today, but it should still be on the watch list. It's definitely on my watch list right now as a potential move out here versus BTC. Basic attention token yesterday had a nice rally, big volume coming off the lows. Let me show you the 4-hour chart. Now this one has been beaten up and down and out for quite some time, but I was watching this, rallied right into that resistance point here yesterday, and was already up pretty big, but then took that big smackdown right back to the lows. So
yeah, it's disheartening to see coins like that. If you guys are in trades and they do that, you just have to respect it and just step aside, even if you have a loss. I mean, you can try to wait for a bounce. Yeah. Now here you got that bounce a couple bars, but keep in mind these are 4-hour bars. So if you were holding through that big drop, you would have had to wait basically another 8 hours. Yeah. So you would get back up towards a decent selling point. So sometimes you just have to take the loss.
So we covered Bitcoin. We covered Bitcoin Cash earlier. Civic, another one I was watching for potential breakout. You can see my chart here is pretty messy, but those two trend lines I've been talking about, this declining trend line, it broke that. I wanted to see confirmation to break out that horizontal resistance point, and it really tried, and then just got smacked down right below that trend line again. So nothing to do yet, in my opinion. Dash. We talked Dash starting to roll over, breaking down pretty badly here versus BTC in the last day and a half or so. The dollar chart on the 4-hour is starting to really roll over, so keep an eye on this one. Be careful. I've seen this a lot of times, and they tend to, Lisk did this earlier in the year. And
well, that's that's a traditional rounded top. So it's not a good move.
It's generally not bullish unless it can put in a good low here. Decred versus BTC, one I was really liking here at the lows, and just rallied right into that resistance point again, and ever since then just has been pulling back versus Bitcoin. And right now it's at a key level here, so let's see if it can hold some of these more recent lows here. And this is more of a zone, right there, and somewhere in this range here. But yeah, it's right taking a pretty good hit along with everything else right now. EOS, man, this one's been rocking and still holding up versus Bitcoin.
Ooh, man,
on the daily chart it's still holding up. It hasn't broken that trend. It took a hit just like everything else, but the trend is definitely very strong still on this one. So just crazy volume off these most recent lows too, just being accumulated here.
Yep. Yeah, when the volume stays high like that, you're basically in a different. Now EOS is one of those coins, if you take a really long-term view of it, it was just beaten up. This was something that is just ICO'd over here and was just destroyed.
And it was because of the supply issue.
Sure.
I mean, when they first came out, right, I was watching it. You can see this old line on my chart where I was watching that. And they just continued to release coins, and people didn't like that. And I think we finally reached the point where enough coins were out where you can kind of maybe look at the market and say what's left to come out versus current prices. It just started to look attractive. I know they were going to do their
Is
your
this
test
was this
nets
the
and-
year-long ICO one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I thought that was the reason that first pump happened though with the bottom there was actually the news that they were going to have 1,000 apps on their platform when they came out, which is what caused that. And it's funny because you saw in 10x when they said they had a partner with Visa
Yeah.
for some of that, so they had the same pop, but then they failed immediately. Versus where EOS has been able to sustain it. But when you guys see a volume change like that and a change in direction and a change in behavior. The behavior to me being the sustained uptrend and then the volume staying at a higher level. Like you notice that blue line being your average volume that's staying up.
Yeah.
That's a change in behavior. And that just means that you have to, no matter how much you hated EOS, because I hated EOS because it never,
Yeah.
people always ask me, is this the bottom? Is this the bottom? And I'm like, well, don't buy the first pop up, right? Because the first pop up can fail. You have to buy that.
Sure.
You have to buy that second pop. And then it finally did it.
And the thing
You
with
just
a
have to
lot of these
respect it.
too is, you may have a bias against the project or against how they did the ICO or a lot of that. And so if you don't want to hold it long term, I get that. But if you're trading it, you got to pay attention and put the biases aside and say, hey, this
Sure.
might be same thing with IOTA. A lot of people didn't like IOTA. They were talking about some of the flaws in the code base. And they were
Yep.
talking about, but if you let that keep you out of it, I mean, you just missed
Yeah.
a massive move, right?
So
You got to leave some of those biases. Now, if you're long term and you've got your philosophies and you feel more comfortable with the strong fundamentals of a project, that's great. Absolutely, right? You should take that approach. But if you're
Yeah.
trading these things, it's a different mentality, right?
And
so
I
more
think-
short term.
And I think you have to ask yourself, who are you? Like I've answered this question a long time ago for me. Who are you? Are you an analyst? Are you a fundamentalist? Or are you trying to trade to make money? If you're trying to trade to make money, then I don't care what you think about the project. If soiled apples are all of a sudden worth $1 million a pound, I'm going to buy some soiled apples. So
Crypto kitties. Everyone's buying crypto kitties.
yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. So if you don't like EOS as the project, but you're a trader and you recognize the volume and the pattern and you want to make a trade to make some money, then take the trade. You can't create your own FUD in your own mind, basically, is what that
Yeah.
is.
So do the fundamentals and the news matter when it comes to trading? It'll certainly have an influence on it, absolutely, right? But you'll see that translate into the price action on the charts.
Yeah. So what happens is the news and the fundamentals will kind of lead the coin in a direction, but the direction is actually defined by the market participants. Okay. So if EOS came out with this great news, they're going to have 1,100 apps on their platform, and the whales, the institutions, whoever they are, if they don't care, then EOS is not going to do anything. Yeah. But if those whales want EOS for whatever reason, our job as traders is to look for their signals and to follow the action.
The other thing too is people talk about, they're going to release this wallet or this new thing's happening, and it's more often than not, it's sell the news, that type of action, right? It's when the news comes out of something that's going to happen, you'll see it pump up until that point, and then when the actual event happens, they tend to sell off, and that's just very typical of these type of markets that are news driven, right? So
yeah, and I think you also have to take the weight of the news. I go back to I think of IOTA.
Yeah.
I think of the news of IOTA. Okay, so here's IOTA, who's number 9 coin market cap.
That was a surprise, though, right? So that was the opposite versus like, hey, we're going to release this.
Well, go to the IOTA chart real quick, because yeah, exactly. So this is the thing. If you go to IOTA, it's IOP.
Everybody just panicked.
So go back to, where's the low at 40? Well, right there. Oh, so put your mouse right there, down at those lows. So you saw this volume come in at IOTA, and you saw the price action go sideways. And you're like, what? Man, IOTA's looking really strong. This is really good. What that is those people that know about those insiders that know about that news are accumulating the crap out of IOTA right there. And they're doing that because they know that eventually this press release is going to happen. And this isn't a new wallet that came out. This is basically IOTA telling the world that, hey, we're going to do the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance, or the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance. And that's when this thing took off. But it actually took a few days for it to get all those legs underneath of it.
And here's the thing,
took that news in.
You don't have to know the news or know anything about that to have been alerted to this, right? So I've been tracking. You can see this old line on my chart where I've been watching this downtrend, saying once it breaks above that, right, then you start paying attention. And it did. And when it broke above it, big volume came in, hit the moving averages, and that's your signal that the trend is reversing, right? So that gave you plenty of opportunities along the way to get in on this. So you didn't have to be an insider or know the news, right? You could have got in on this little bull flag, right here on this pause. You could have gone in on this little pullback here on the breakout. You could have gone in right here, right? So it just gave you
I think that's when the news came out.
And this is when the news came out, right? And it just kind of rocked from there. So, yes, they're news driven and it has an influence, but the charts will paint a picture of the momentum shift. It'll paint a picture of resistance and trends and all that being broken. So you got to pay attention to those.
And what I tell people is this. People always tell me, oh, this is going to do that. This news is coming out. This guy's having an event. I'm like, okay, if you want to trade off of the news, let me know your news trading strategy. What's your strategy for trading the news? And I never get an answer. No one can give me a strategy for trading news. I can give you a strategy for trading charts.
Yeah, it's too hard to do. So let's see. Let's keep cycling through a few of these. So we talked the big three. Let's look at Ethereum Classic here versus BTC. It was one of the stronger names here as of late, but taking a pretty good smackdown. Finally breaking that 10 EMA on the daily chart. You can see I had an early signal up here at the top. This was what I was watching. It started looking like it was topping a little bit here on the dollar, and had this support line. Once it broke that, that's starting to translate to starting to break down on the daily chart here too.
Yeah.
And so
I don't know,
could have got you out a little bit early if you followed that, paid attention there. You were, 5% or so before it actually broke down. Here we are, 8. Not the end of the world. Has had a huge run, but it's looking like it's wanting to pause and pull in a little bit more right here. Let's see here. Let's go through a couple more. Let's hit the biggies here. We talked IOTA. We talked Litecoin, Lisk. Speaking of Lisk.
Yeah, Lisk is
and
a good
so
one.
Lisk was bouncing here pretty good. Was one of the strong names back in here, and then just put this pause, bouncing right back at a key support level, though, in my opinion, on this low, and had a pretty sharp pullback along with everything else here in the last day and a half.
Yeah,
But it's got to hold this level here, otherwise you could see another big leg down on Lisk.
Yeah, it's been more pronounced than I wanted that pullback to be. You want to see it retrace. That's healthy action. But when it starts to break prior bases, like it broke that base, you just have to respect the charts at that point and step aside if you're long the coin. Otherwise, then even if you gave it to this 77,000 level right there, that's 2 bases in, right?
Yeah.
So you had this high level base, and then you had these 2 intermediate level bases, and it's just too far down.
It's pretty volatile as of late. I mean, this little pump here was 12%, and then just kind of sells off, right? So
yeah, you have to respect the tall wicks too, especially on volume like that.
To trade these.
That's a big outside day. That's a huge outside day. Actually, looking at that.
Okay, so let's keep going here. So we talked Neo. Monaco was pumping pretty good the other day,
man,
and it's just and somebody was asking me about this one too, and my verdict on this one, it's just really hard to trust Monaco. I've seen this pump so many times on this coin and it fades. Right now, the good news is it's holding that 10 EMA on the daily, right? So maybe that's a low, and then it's kind of maybe puts in a little bit of a flag here. This was a long wick, big reversal day, though. I don't like that.
Yeah,
high volume.
That's a negative.
On the 4-hour chart, I wouldn't do anything with this one yet until I saw 2 things. Maybe the downtrend broke here, or this kind of maybe round base building up a little bit of a low, because then it gives you a good place to take some risk, right? You can say if it starts to bump up, then your low is going to be, below the most recent consolidation. So,
yeah, if you're really itching to take a trade on this, I would actually say it's not a horrible place to take an entry, because you kind of have a natural stop just 1 or 2%
just
below.
right here. Yeah, but it's preemptive, right? There's nothing telling you that it's.
Yeah, no, you're correct. It's definitely preempted. This is literally for a bounce trade into that trend line that he just drew.
Sure.
That's literally what's that for. Because even if you wanted to buy here, you don't know. This thing could go sideways for the next 2 weeks. And
then
then
it could consolidate. It just had that big pump, and
it had the big pump. So, but yeah, if you wanted to trade here, and I'm not advocating this, I personally would not do this trade, but I know bottom feeders, right? Well,
they're good bounce plays sometimes, especially from oversold conditions. I mean,
especially
this one's not really.
You have that recent support right there.
Yeah.
But actually, as we go lower, I don't like that. As we see the longer term time frame, that looks like it just broke down from that little bear flag.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't take that.
No, neither would I. Let's see, metal. Another one that had an attempt, kind of fading. We talked Neo. Let's see, Omisego. We haven't looked at this one here. And again, this was one that I was watching here in recent days, because let me go to the 4-hour chart. Again, one that's has had this very defined downtrend for a long time.
Yeah.
And I was thinking maybe we were getting close here a couple days ago. We were hitting this. We were kind of seeing this like bullish divergence on the RSI.
Mm-hmm.
It was starting to rise here. The MACD was also doing something similar. You can see the signal lines. And there was 2 points of resistance to watch here, right? There was this downtrend, which has been the wall for a long time. And then there was this horizontal resistance point, which they were just
correlates with that.
Which correlates with that. And look at, they were meeting right here. And I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking, okay, this is going to show its hand in the next day or two. It's going to either bust out of this thing or it's going to break down and you have another. And I was really bullish. I thought we were going to break out. I didn't take a position, but I was waiting for it. Yet. You can see that little green highlight area. I was thinking somewhere in there would be my signal.
Okay.
And it broke down. And so nothing to do.
And that's why you can't take those preemptive positions.
And so versus USD, again, I was liking this because it broke out on the USD chart. And let me show you on the daily. The 850 mark I was talking about here a couple weeks back, that was this little base that he was putting in right here, this little ascending base.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really it. And so far it's held it. It's still trending up. But just versus Bitcoin, it's underperforming pretty significantly. Right?
Sure,
so,
of course.
So it's still holding it. But
that was the shake. That was the
yeah,
spike
that only
low
happened
wick.
on Bitfinex. I think there was
Neo. It was Bitfinex.
That was crazy.
I think they're just shaking people out to get some coins.
10x, I was watching a nice potential triple bottom here, broke down below that today. So that's kind of invalidating that little channel bottom pattern that I was looking for. Pivot was pretty strong here. Let's see if that one shook out. Yep, it was trying, it had these big rallies here the last couple of days. And it was actually looking pretty good, but just in the last day or so, look how tight that was getting. And that purple line was kind of the signal for me. Maybe it was going to break out there after this big volume pump. It just sat tight for a while.
You know the thing I don't like about this chart? You see this downward curling action right there? I want to see that curl upward. I don't want to see that curl down. So that actually would keep me out of this and kind of...
Right. Yeah, you want to see the base ascending, not this at the end.
Yeah, it's basically pressure. If you guys think about it in terms like that, if something's being pressured down, you don't want to be involved with that, okay? And until it proves you otherwise. If it's pressured up, though, and you'll see this time and time again, if you look at many charts, like right there, there's a little bit of curling action.
Curling up right there.
Yeah, you want to see that upward curling action. And you'll see that time and time again, like just before the big breakout, like 2 or 3 bars.
Yep.
Doesn't matter your time frame.
They'll start to really show some bullishness, and then they have that big pop.
Yep.
So let's see here. So Power Ledger was a darling for a couple weeks.
Downward pressure right there.
And once it really broke down, had a pretty big correction. And this was like the perfect fib bounce here. Sorry about that. My charts are all over the place. And if you look at this one, after that big rally, the little bounce we had a couple days ago was like, to the penny right back there, and then just kind of gave it up. So
yeah, but typically the 30% would be your continuation of the move. Although in crypto it seems to be 60. That's kind of strange. I find that odd.
3, 2, and 6. Yeah, the 618 are pretty biggies. Quantum.
Oh, don't get me started in Qtum. Ask my guys about how I feel about Qtum. This thing, this is like the girl that just keeps rejecting you over and over, and you just keep coming back for punishment. Just stay away until this thing.
I feel your pain, man.
Until this thing proves
itself.
We tried
trading this a few times.
It's horrible.
It didn't work.
It's horrible. I just run away when people say Qtum. I just go, nope, next. It's like we saw with EOS, right? You need to see the bottoming volume. You need to see it curl to the up.
See it turn the trend. And that's the thing I tell everybody, right? Is don't feel like you got to catch the exact bottom, because you really don't.
You can't. No,
you can't. Yeah, you might miss the 20, 30% off the lows, but then it'll set up and give you a secondary entry. Much better risk reward perspective at that point. And then you can feel better and more confident about putting more capital to work.
Yeah.
Versus guessing this might be the bottom. Like, don't let that FOMO get you. A lot of people will be like, oh, I missed it. It just rallied 40% off the lows. I'm like, yeah, but it's so beaten up that 40% is going to look like nothing, in a couple of days or weeks.
Yeah, and if you're the person saying that to yourself, oh, I missed the bottom, that just tells you, in my opinion, not to be derogatory, how inexperienced you are.
What you say about me?
Yeah, exactly. And if you're saying that to yourself, that means you don't have a strategy. That means that you don't have a way that you want to trade. You're in here to make money, but you need to get educated before you can make money. Okay, if you're going to go get a job, you have to get trained for that job, whether it's 12 years of college to be a doctor or the one day of training at McDonald's. Either way, you have to get training. So,
or my 4-hour class.
Or Node's 4-hour class.
You got to watch it once or twice, 3 times.
Yeah, you have to
It takes practice.
You have to watch it more than once, that's for sure.
So Stratus versus USD again. This is one I was liking because it did have that downtrend break.
I played that USD, actually,
and it's still looking very strong on this chart. Never breached that 10 EMA on the daily chart, so it's very good. Versus BTC, it's been choppy, but nice little support bars coming in here. So let's go zoom in a little bit on the 4-hour chart. Again, this was one I was in just yesterday or the day before.
I was in it too,
and had this nice, attempted break.
And it's a cup with a handle, and you had your shakeout now. So
what got me out here was had this rally attempt, no big deal. It was a little extended. Then it paused, and then it gave you another one. And at that point, I really tightened up my stops.
I got out on that double top.
I said that's a little bit of a double top, near term, not keeping up. And then this was kind of my stop point. Got shook out, and that's okay because you just get stopped out into BTC, and then that has its rally, and it's fine. But this one's still looking good overall. I mean, it's a little choppy here.
Well, I will say you have a nice higher low. You have a nice higher low right there. And anytime you have,
it's still trending, right?
Oh yeah, no.
And there's a very clear resistance point now that you can point out at.
Yeah, and this is one thing I've noticed with these cryptos time and time again. If you guys aren't familiar with me or even with Node necessarily, we've been trading stocks for how long? Like 10 plus 15 years.
Like
for me, it's like
minutes.
15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
20 minutes for Node. That's about
maybe
right.
An hour.
That's about right. Maybe about an hour. But it's different because you will see these form these little curling bases again and again, and they'll pop up and they'll come down. They'll pop up and they'll come down, but they'll have higher lows.
Yeah.
And then one day it'll just like you'll have these highs converge like you have with that purple trend line. And then at some point in the future, that's when it goes after it's shaken you out of it 3 or 4 times.
And the main thing is you can see the trend has clearly changed, right? We've been in this really long-term downtrend.
Yep.
And then we started to have these little shakeouts, and now it's starting to edge higher. You can see the indicators are starting to confirm that a little bit, right? They're moving up here. So,
yeah, I consider that kind of it's not a normal inverted head and shoulders, but it is a type of a reversal pattern. You see those.
Well, it was a good double bottom with a bullish divergence. And so what I was looking at here, let me show you guys.
This is your double bottom?
Yep.
But then
yep. And so you can see that, you had this first one here, and then you had a lower low, but you can see the RSI was higher. So I was looking at that divergence, and that's when I started seeing that. That's really when I started to get a little bit more.
Yeah, I got interested after this. What I'm calling that right shoulder got put in because that's your confirmation with the higher low.
Yeah, and so it didn't form a double bottom. It started to, and I thought, okay, this could be the double bottom that would have taken you up at this point, right? With the neckline here.
Yeah, gotcha.
But it didn't. But it did what you said, right? It kind of started to form this more of a inverted head and shoulder type of consolidation here, but good bottoming action all around. Right?
No, it's actually really good, and it's kind of what we talked about a little bit in EOS. It's a change in behavior, and I talk about that quite a bit because, for me, that put things in perspective. A change in behavior, because when you think about it, the markets are made up of people. And people behave in a certain manner. So, if Node comes into work drunk every day, okay.
Who told you that?
Sorry, I'll let that out. And then one day he comes in work and he's working 12 hours a day, being gangbusters, doing all this stuff. I'm like, wow, all of a sudden Node's my star guy. And then I'm going to pay more attention to him. Well, the coins are the same way. This thing's been drunk for the past 6 months. And then all of a sudden you see some bottoming action. You see some volume coming in. You see higher lows and higher highs, some tightening. And,
yeah,
it's a complete change in behavior.
And the thing is, you don't have to get the exact bottom, right? I mean, look at this. No. This is going back 6 weeks, right?
Yeah.
It just takes you to be a little patient. So speaking of star guy, we got crypto in the house. What's up, Omar? Good to have you here. I see you posting there. And we got quite a few people here still watching today. We're just talking charts. We're watching Bitcoin hit 13K and keep going. And we're kind of cycling through some of the other altcoins right now. So we talked Stratus, Vertcoin we talked earlier, but let's take a look at that one. One I've been watching here, the trend again, just like Stratus, very strong here in the last couple of days. Had that smackdown yesterday, but we want to see this one hold the lows, see if it can reverse a little bit. But it's been a good trade. It's just been in and out. I know there's a lot of bullishness around this one and some changes to the project happening here near term. But for now, near term, I'm holding the BTC over this one, but I was trying to trade this one here a little bit. So let's see what else we got here. A couple more. Waves was strong here.
Salt recently. Salt's been having a big pump.
Salt.
Everyone's talking about salt.
Coming off the lows there. We'll take a look at salt. I was thinking Waves was breaking out of this pattern here yesterday, and then just very choppy action, still hitting that downtrend, but it's close. So the next couple of days are going to be key for Waves to see if we can break above that. Now on the USD side, this is why I watch it. Look at this long-term base it was putting in and just starting to edge out above on the USD. So that's what's keeping me bullish on Waves here.
Yeah, and that's what I really like when you have this long-term with the volume accumulation. You look at it since this low when it hit the low at 2.4. See the volume? Look at that average volume bar, just boom.
Yep.
Just boom, straight up, and now you're seeing more volume on the right-hand side. If this doesn't sell off on these big volume bars here, it's going to pop.
Yeah.
More than likely. I mean, nothing's for certain, but with and I really like the increase in the average volume. That's what I like.
It's moving in the right direction.
What I don't like is all the wicks all over the place. You're not seeing those closes at the high.
Yeah.
That's one thing that's kind of leading me.
So a lot of questions coming up around who's this voice on the other side of me here? And I'm usually by myself. So this is
I'm the good trader in the room. Yeah.
Rio Crypto. Why don't you go tell them about yourself and your YouTube channel? I know you've got a channel and people are asking about that, and I'd be happy to send people your way.
Yeah. So I'm Rio Crypto. Yeah, I've got a YouTube channel. Had it for a few months now. I've known Node for about 5 years, and yeah, we've been talking about doing a live stream for a little bit, and
yeah,
Node called me up, said, hey, quit eating lunch and come over and let's do a live stream. So we've been doing that. Yeah, come check out my channel. You like my last video, feel free to leave hateful comments. I haven't actually posted in a little while. I talked about my last video was when Bitcoin topped out at 11.5 and we had a big parabolic doji bar. So that was my last video. But yeah, check out the channel. Hope to see you guys around.
Cool. All right, so guys, we've been going for some time now. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Most likely I will be on live again later this evening my time. And so it's been good. Randy, I'm going to have to bring you on again. That was fun and good talking with everybody. So thanks for joining, everybody.
Have a good day,
I'll get to the rest of those charts later. Take care.